The image of justice is that of a sword, sharp, decisive, immediate, wielded by a blindfolded woman standing on the top of halls of justice all over the world. What happens when this sword rusts in its scabbard, drawn not in defence of truth but in pursuit of expediency? And the case of Peter Sullivan, now widely recognised as Britain's longest-serving miscarriage of justice, exposes a legal system that's quick to condemn but glacial in its contrition, not unlike the story of Malkinson not so long ago. After 38 years in prison for a murder he didn't commit, Sullivan was finally exonerated, not because the system functioned efficiently, but because it eventually ran out of excuses to keep him incarcerated. In 1986, the 21-year-old Diane Siddle was brutally murdered while walking home from a late shift in Birkenhead. Her death was frenzied, savage and public. The media christened her killer the Beast of Birkenhead, a label that quickly stuck to Peter Sullivan, a vulnerable man with low intellectual ability, no history of sexual violence, and a penchant for telling tall tales about darts champions and football trials. The murder triggered a Reclaim the Night movement on Merseyside, spawned a rape crisis centre, and fueled an intense climate of fear and rage, and into that frenzy walked Sullivan, and he was devoured by it. At the centre of the case was bite mark evidence, a forensic method now so discredited that it's virtually inadmissible in modern courts. Two dentists swore that the marks on Diane's body matched Sullivan's distinctive dental pattern. That match, and a police confession made without a solicitor or appropriate adult present, formed the spine of the case. Yet Sullivan repeatedly retracted that confession. He was interrogated without protection, his cognitive limitations ignored, and he was convicted largely because he said what detectives wanted to hear. The judge at the original trial remarked on the brutality of the murder, but not the brutality of the process used to convict Sullivan. The system doesn't merely err, it resists correction. Sullivan first appealed in 2008. The Criminal Cases Review Commission dismissed it. Why? Because DNA testing was considered unlikely to produce a profile. This, despite the fact that similar techniques had, by that time, helped convict the killers of Rachel Nicholl and Stephen Lawrence. Like Andrew Malkinson before him, Sullivan became trapped in a Kafkaesque cycle where proclaiming his innocence made him ineligible for parole. He refused to lie and say, "I did it," and that meant he served an extra 2 decades in prison. What kind of justice punishes the innocent for telling the truth? The tabloids were never content with Sullivan's name. They gave him monikers: Wolfman, Beast of Birkenhead, Mersey Ripper. The press, prosecutors and police formed a grisly trinity, each feeding the other's appetite for drama. Miscarriages of justice are not just judicial errors, they're theatre. They are the scapegoats for public fury, played out with all the narrative certainty of Greek tragedy, but none of its catharsis. Sullivan was not just wrongfully imprisoned, he was made into a national villain, and that identity has stuck for nearly 40 years. 40 years. And the question now is not simply how this happened, it's what happens next. The courts have quashed the conviction, but where's the apology? Where's the redress? Andrew Malkinson had to fight not only for his freedom, but for the right not to be charged for his prison, board and lodging, and actually to get the money that he was told he'd got. Peter Sullivan may yet face similar indignities. This isn't justice, this is cowardice wrapped in bureaucracy. A system that sprints to convict, but crawls to compensate, is not worthy of public trust. And the most bitter irony of all, the real killer may still be out there. The DNA found on Diane Siddle's body doesn't match Sullivan's, and it has not matched anyone in the National DNA database. So whoever did that has got away with it. The Peter Sullivan case is not an outlier. It's a mirror. It reflects a judicial system more concerned with closure than truth, with headlines than humanity. As a society, we have to ask, how many more innocent men or women are locked away, unknown, unarmed, and abandoned? We need to get rid of this juvenile belief that justice is blind. It's not. It sees race, class, and intellect and vulnerability. It chooses its victims carefully and covers its tracks with legal ink and procedural fog. And the moral test of any society is how it treats the powerless. In the case of Peter Sullivan, I think we've failed that test spectacularly. We must do more than quash convictions. We must confront the culture that allowed them to happen in the first place. For Peter, for Diane, for justice that is neither delayed nor denied, but actually done.